Welcome to XYPN Radio, where your host Alan Moore brings you into a community of fee-only financial planners who want to profitably and successfully serve Gen X and Gen Y clients. If you're ready to get the knowledge you need from leaders in your field, learn from forward-thinking advisors, and take action on your own goals, XYPN Radio is the show for you. Here's your host.
Hello, and welcome to this episode of XYPN Radio. I'm your host, Alan Moore, and today I'm really excited to have Melissa Ellis, a fee-only advisor from Overland Park, Kansas, just outside Kansas City, on the show today. Melissa has a really interesting story about getting into financial planning, as she tried about 3 or 4 times to become a planner, but kept being told that either it wasn't an appropriate career for a woman, or that the timing just wasn't right, or some other reason for her to not become a planner. After going through a divorce, however, she decided she could do whatever the heck she wanted and enrolled in a really cool online master's degree program. Like many of us, she experienced a failed succession plan before launching her own firm. About a year into the business, she found her niche of working with divorcing women. She got her CDFA and recently has decided to go one step further to focusing on college planning for children of divorced parents. I, of course, got really excited about this. You'll have to listen all the way to the end of the episode to hear our discussion about that. You can find any of the additional resources that we mentioned during the episode at xyplanningnetwork.com/117. Also, be sure to go to xyplanningnetwork.com/VIP to join our private group just for XYPN Radio listeners. It's a community of advisors we've all been looking for that's there to provide support when we need it the most. Best of all, it's free. I encourage you to check it out. Again, that's xyplanningnetwork.com/VIP. Without further ado, here's my interview with Melissa. Hey, Melissa, welcome to the show. Thanks so much for being on.
Well, thanks, Alan, for having me.
So I'll let you tell me, how was your experience at XYPN 17? Because we just got back a week ago now. So how was the conference for you?
It was fantastic. I really got a lot out of the conference. And I think the very best part of it was I got to meet the people in my study group. And we were just put together randomly about a year ago and had never met each other. And we've been working together for a year. And we all came to conference this year. So we got to meet for the first time face to face, after seeing each other as a flat image on the Zoom room each week. Got to meet Grant Bledsoe, Kelly Lucci, and Michael Skoronsky. And that, I think, it just made us a much better group, even just getting to meet each other face to face.
Yeah, we tried it this year, putting sort of that 2-hour lunch time block in there just for study group meetups. And it seemed to go really well. We've been encouraging folks, come to the conference with your study group and use this as an opportunity, either during the conference or a day before or a day after, because that in-person meeting, I think, is really powerful. I mean, it almost like solidifies everything, like you'll have a great relationship, but it just sort of, I don't know, to me, it just sort of solidifies the group whenever you're able to get together in person.
Absolutely. And it was funny because I had pictured each of them at different heights than they actually were.
Isn't it funny how we do that? I had somebody very seriously tell me, "You're much taller than your voice sounds." At the conference, they're listening, I guess, from listening to the podcast, they had an image in their head of how tall I was, and they were off. But yeah, so I'll use this as a pitch for anyone that is in, that missed XYPN 17. We've rebranded the conference to XYPN Live. So you can go to xypnlive.com or xypn18.com and get your ticket. But really is a great time to come out. And it was a pleasure because at XYPlan Network, we have an advisory committee of our members. So we have 6 members that are involved in just helping us vet ideas, bringing feedback from the membership and all of that to be sure we're staying abreast on where we need to be. And you graciously agreed to be on our advisory committee. So thank you for that.
Well, thank you for inviting me to the committee. It was a great experience. I'm really excited about the future for XYPN.
So if you need to know any secrets, get Melissa drunk and ask her questions about what we talked about.
My lips are sealed. I can't speak.
So to kick things off, sort of give me an overview of your business, sort of where are you located, how many clients do you have, just sort of an overview of the business, and we'll dig into the details as we go.
Okay. I'm in Overland Park, Kansas. I work primarily with women, and that just kind of happened by happenstance that women like to work with other women. I'm not exclusively working with women, but that's who really is gravitating towards me. That was a great start for my business. And I have currently right at 25 households and about 64 accounts. They're each paying an annual financial planning fee. And in some cases, if I'm also handling the investment management, they're paying an asset under management fee as well.
So Overland Park, I noticed y'all were listed as the best city to raise a family. I just randomly saw that on a list the other day. Everyone's upset, of course, when your city doesn't get listed. So congratulations.
Of course. Well, thank you. It is a great place to raise a family. We have great schools, and we're just outside of Kansas City. And in Kansas City, it's a really big secret that we're just not really a cow town at all.
You don't ride your horse to work every day?
No, not at all. It's very much a commuter city. Overland Park is a suburb, and so the Chiefs Stadium and Royal Stadium are all within easy drive of Overland Park. So there's, major sports teams. We have theater. We have all kinds of fun activities and concerts that come to Kansas City. So great place to live. Overland Park is just a really nice place to be.
So take me back just a little bit. How did you get into financial planning? Was this always your planned career path?
It was my planned career path at one point. I started out, I wanted to do this as my job when I was about 23, 24 years old. My dad was in this business. He wasn't a financial planner, or isn't a financial planner. He's always been more of an investment manager. He had a finance background, and he had been in this business for well over 10 years at that point. And I said, hey, I think I'd like to do that. And he told me that it really wasn't an appropriate business for a young woman. And I know. Who knew? Maybe that's why there's only 23% of CFPs are female. Actually, his standpoint, it wasn't that I couldn't do the job. It was more at that point in time, he personally would go out and meet with his clients in their homes. And so he didn't think that was really safe for a young woman. And I can see his standpoint as a father, but ultimately I just listened to him. I don't know why I listened to him, because usually I would not listen to his advice at that point in my life, and I would just go ahead and do whatever I thought I wanted to do. I listened to him, and I went through and took the job that was really my dream job from the time I was probably, a kid. I always wanted to work at a major airline, and I then pursued a career at a major airline and got the job and worked always in their accounting or finance area until, probably the end of, it was TWA was the airline. They went bankrupt in 2001, and that's when I decided to change industries at that point in time.
So why was that a dream job for you? What was it about that job?
I love to travel. I've always traveled. My parents always took us on vacation whenever I was a kid, and then I loved the perks of being an airline employee, getting to travel the world, and I did that quite a bit. We took our kids and we went all over the world. We would go to Europe, we would go to Hawaii, fly off to Orlando for a weekend, or fly up to Mall of America in Minneapolis for just a day sometimes, just to go shopping. That was kind of a fun lifestyle. It wasn't a great paying job, but it had a lot of great perks. So I loved having that.
And so obviously when your company goes bankrupt, it's a great opportunity to reassess. So did you sort of look at pivoting back into the idea of getting into financial services at that point?
I did, but it was 2001. And so then again, I was told this is not a great time, bad timing to come into this business. So I then went into a sales job with a telecom company, which was a big telecom company. And that was great until September 11th, 2001. And about a month after that, they had a big layoff. And again, I found myself looking for a job. Still was not a good time for financial services, or so I was told, just for a timing standpoint with the dot-com bust around that time. So I continued into a couple of other sales jobs that were technology sales jobs until 2008. I got divorced. And I decided at this point in time, I can do whatever I want. I can remake myself and reinvent my whole life. So that's when I decided it was time to become a financial planner. So October 1st, 2008, great timing on my part, I'm sure, I became a financial planner with a company that was a fee-based firm.
What an amazing, how many times can you be turned away from this amazing career that is financial planning? It just pains me to hear sort of how much talent have we lost because they weren't quite as strong-willed as you are to just really force their way back into the industry. I mean, how many times can you be told this is the wrong career before you're just going to give up? Most people do after, if one center of influence or their father tells them this isn't the right fit for you, they're going to take that to heart and never show back up. So congratulations on actually coming back around to financial planning. So I am curious about your experience in working in sales positions, because obviously not necessarily financial sales and doing and selling insurance, but did you learn how to sell at some of those other companies sort of in those different industries?
I did. I really got to benefit from some fantastic sales training that the companies offered, either in-house. In some cases, they hired professional sales training firms to come in and teach us their sales techniques, which really has helped with this business. I'm not really a huge high-pressure salesperson. I really like more of an approach where it's more of a consulting type sales process, which fits well for this business as financial planning, because you really have to get to know people to find out what it is that they need, or if even your service fits what they're looking for. So.
Yeah, Nancy Blakey, my sales coach, calls it relationship sales, because there's transactional sales where it's I have something and I need you to buy it, and I'm gonna just go until you buy it. But in a business like ours that is very relationship based, that doesn't work. I mean, the only way that works is if you're locking someone into some overpriced annuity for 7 years. So it really does take understanding what it is that they need and figuring out if your services are the right fit, both for their perspective, so it's a good fit, but also from yours, because we don't always look at it this way, but you can only serve 100 clients at most. I mean, that's the top end. So if you can only serve 100 clients, you would rather work with 100 people that you love and that you can help than 100 people that you sort of forced into buying your services. Not that would work anyway.
Right, absolutely. And I want 100 clients that are going to stay with me for a long time. I don't want to have to go out and look for new clients all the time. That is not my forte. My forte is actually doing the financial planning and giving them the advice and really getting to know them and what it is that they would like to do with their lives and helping them reach those goals. But going out and looking for new clients, prospecting for them, that is not my cup of tea. So
understood. Mine either. So you got started with that fee-based firm. I guess how did you come across? Did you know at that point that there was fee-only, commission, and fee-based and all of these terms out there, or was it just sort of the opportunity that presented itself?
It was really the opportunity that presented itself. It was just a situation that, once again, when I said, this is what I'm going to do, and at that point, I was not going to be turned back. I had a plan, and my father was still working, and he said, if you really want to do this, he was thinking that he would like to retire and not work as hard as he had worked all of his life. And he said, I have some clients that eventually, you could absorb those into your business, but we need to go work with a friend of his that he had known throughout his career that was a little bit younger, but was starting his own firm. And he had a book of business that didn't fit his niche, and he was looking for someone to take that on. Through that connection, I had a book of business just to start working with immediately. So I had very quickly 283 households that, yes, that were very, let's just say, underserved. They didn't fit the niche, so they weren't having regular financial planning conversations. Some of them did have things like annuities or mutual funds with a mutual fund company. A lot of, probably a good piece of that business really had great potential to be fee-only clients. And when they understood what that really meant and that they weren't just locked into one fund company or whatever it is that they had in their portfolio, then they really embraced that. And they loved the fact that they were getting a financial plan. And there we did not charge for that financial plan. It was just a part of that fee that they were paying, which was based on AUM. And I really embraced the financial planning side of it. So I decided immediately to start studying for the CFP. I went back to school. I found, you had to do the study program. And I could have done that through American College or any other school out there teaching that. Then I found that there is something called Great Plains Ideas. And I think that's still a consortium of schools within the Midwest, University of Missouri, Kansas, KU, I believe Montana State. There's quite a few schools that are all a part of that. And you can do your study through those schools. And I already had a bachelor's degree, so I could take those hours and either get a certificate in financial planning, or you could go on and get your master's. So I jumped in with both feet and did the whole master's program. Then passed the CFP test in 2013 and became a CFP because by that point, I also had 3 years of work experience. So I really just jumped into the whole career, with both education, and that really did help me with all of my clients. The master's program also included not just financial planning basics, but also things like the behavioral finance side of the business, which is really helpful when you're working with clients of different backgrounds and looking for different goals.
Yeah, I'm at least somewhat familiar with the program because, like you said, Montana State University that's here in Bozeman is part of it. And I had talked with one of their professors, but my understanding, just for folks that may be interested in getting their master's, this is a cool way to do it because it's 100% virtual, I believe. I don't think you actually have to live, on campus at any of these universities, but you sort of pick your home school. You pay in-state tuition or if you're in state. So if you live in Missouri, go to Missouri, you can pay in-state tuition. And then you get access to professors at all of these universities. So like MSU, I believe the professor here teaches estate planning. So she teaches estate planning for students that are at all, 7, 8, dozen universities, however many are there. And so you're able to interact with a lot of different professors, which is a huge benefit, I think, because most graduate programs, only have a couple of professors because you only have a dozen students. So there's no reason to have more than that. So it's a really cool program. And it's cool to know that they're expanding, that it is more than just a few, just the 6 or now 7 financial planning classes to get your CFP. It's actually a lot more than that in terms of teaching you real financial planning.
Right. Absolutely. And you hit the nail on the head with that description of the schools. I would highly recommend it. And, at the time I did live in Missouri. That's why I chose Missouri. Now I live in Kansas. So I probably would have chosen K-State if I'd lived over here at the time I did the program. But yeah, it is 100% virtual. I did make a couple of trips down to Columbia just to meet the professors there. And that was very helpful. Just kind of get to know them a little bit face to face. But I would highly recommend that program.
Yeah, people ask me all the time if getting a master's degree is worth it. And you and I are in different positions because I got my undergrad in financial planning and stayed for my master's. This was sort of your way of meeting the CFP requirement in addition to getting a lot more education and training. And from my perspective, I say no, because if you already have the CFP and you have a degree in financial planning, I'm not sure it's worth going back to school for. I don't think you're going to get that many more clients just because you have the letters MS after your name. But from your perspective, you were met with a little bit different decision, and that is, do you go just the certificate route or the master's route? And it sounds like you're happy you went with the master's route. Do you find was it just because you felt like you got a better, more well-rounded education, or do you feel like do you think there's a credibility factor with having a master's in financial planning if a client's talking to you and another advisor that maybe doesn't?
I think sometimes it has helped in some cases to say, I have a master's in personal financial planning, and that sometimes might seal the deal with the client. But I don't think that's what they're looking for. I think they look more for the CFP. And I tend to agree with you that you don't necessarily need to go get the master's. I simply did because I had to complete those 18 hours for the CFP requirement, but then I saw what the other classes were and I thought, well, that would really be helpful. And I felt like it was just good for me personally, just so I would know even more about this business. Also, I thought about the fact that by doing that, having a master's, I might be able to at some point teach. It would give me another outlet for another stream of income. Or if I ever decided I just didn't want to work with clients directly again, it gave me another outlet.
Yeah, I don't think a lot of folks realize the universities are very not picky. They're very strict on who they allow to teach. And it has less to do with teaching ability and more to do with the letters after your name. So many universities, to your point, won't let you teach unless you have a master's degree. And that is the pathway to a PhD if you decided to go that route and hate yourself for a few years while you write your dissertation.
I am not going to go that route. I've watched my daughter go the PhD route and I thought, nope, that's not for me.
So you got your master's in financial planning, passed the CFP. So sort of what was the transition that led up to you starting your own firm?
So I was at that fee-based firm for 6 years and really developed a nice group of clients out of the book that was handed over to me. Basically, I was supposed to acquire that business, and after 3 years, the agreement originally was, and it was a gentleman's agreement, if you will, between my father and this other gentleman, that they didn't really need to write up anything formal, but after 3 years, that those clients would belong to us. And about a year and a half into it, things changed, and that became apparent that they were not going to belong to me, that they were still going to be owned by the firm. I stayed there, though, for a total of 6 years. My father left after a couple of years, and at that point, I was offered a position with another company. They asked me to come work there, and it was a fee-only financial planning firm. And I felt like their principles were in line with mine, and I decided to make that move. The 6 years I was at the other company, I was self-employed, and then suddenly I was employed as a W-2 employee with the firm and realized I no longer had many weeks of vacation or the flexibility.
Yep.
Yeah. And so we have a lot of family that are out of town, and I really kind of enjoyed being able to, go other places and work from those locations. And I couldn't do that as an employee. So after about a year, I thought, you know what, I really would like to just have my own firm and have that flexibility once again. And so that's what I did.
It's so interesting. Financial planning can be so flexible. We can make it inflexible as employers and as managers, which is a whole other conversation on learning how to manage people. Probably should do an episode on that at some point, just how to build out benefit packages so that you don't feel that way. It's very unnecessary. But, looking back at we call it the failed succession plan, fit very well into our pissed off associate advisor category that we like to talk about. And honestly, I actually had a reporter ask me at the conference. She said, is anyone here part of a failed succession plan? Could you introduce me to anyone? And I just laughed and I said, just introduce yourself to anyone here. Like we all been there, like just, pick a name out of a hat. And it's tough because it's such a good sell. And I know listeners are probably tired of hearing me talk about it, but like if you own a firm, please stop selling this concept of succession unless you're willing to sign it. And if you're on the other end of it, do not believe it until it is signed, because I can count on my two hands the number of successful succession plans I have seen work out in this way, that it actually came to fruition. And again, we have almost 500 advisors at the XY Planning Network that can speak to the other side of that equation. But it's tough. When you're young and hungry to get into the business and you want that opportunity, and it sounds like just an awesome opportunity, but too often it doesn't work out, which is a real bummer, because I think, that firm would have been lucky to keep you in that position, and they weren't able to because they screwed it up.
Yeah. And I learned a lot when I went to that fee-only financial planning firm. I learned really how to do financial planning the right way. They were very, well, they've been doing financial planning that way for 35 years. And it was really the way I was taught whenever I got my master's degree. They did a lot of the calculations by hand. You had to know your financial calculator. Didn't just use software to figure everything out. That was good and bad in some ways, but for me, it was a great training ground just to see how it really should be done. And I've carried that on into my new practice with my financial plans are very detailed, and I wouldn't give up that experience for anything. It was well worth it to make that jump and really just see the other side from fee-based to fee only.
So talk to me about the decision to start your firm. I mean, why at this point start a firm instead of, going and taking a high-paying opportunity with the amount of experience that you had in the CFP and your personality? You easily could have gotten a six-figure job, as an advisor, I suspect, or pretty high close to that. So what made you decide to go ahead and go solo instead of a salaried position?
Well, part of it is delusion.
Fair enough.
Yeah, exactly. But part of it was really just, I always wanted to have my own company. And I didn't always know what that was going to look like, but I think I knew from a very young age that I would someday be the owner of a business. And that started out, I was 8 years old and I sold American seeds door to door. So flower seeds, vegetable seeds, 10 cents a pack, 15 cents a pack, whatever they were, would go door to door around my neighborhood selling those seeds every spring and fall. And I had, these neighbors that would always buy from me, and I would save that money. And I learned a lot just by doing that. I would never, ever want to do that ever again. But it was a great way to start out as just a kid to make some money. And I thought, well, this is pretty nice, because you can really do whatever you want if you have your own business. And you can create, you have this vision and you can create it. And so when I grew up, finally, I said, I'm finally going to do this. I'm going to have my own business. And so that's what really spurred me on to launch it, because I thought if I don't do it now, I'm never going to do it. And I feel like I could always go back to working for someone else if this didn't work out. I always could go back. But if I went to work for someone else, I probably would never start my own firm, is how I looked at it. And then the delusional side of it was, hey, I had clients that worked with me before, and maybe they will all just knock my door down to come work with me, which some did, but not everyone. And maybe I didn't really want to work with everyone that was my client before, but a lot of that I really enjoyed working with came with me to my new firm, and that really gave me a great start. So that was my thought process was, I can probably get this launched fairly quickly compared to someone who's starting from scratch, new to the business, new to, just the whole industry as a whole. And so that might be where the delusion comes in, because I did find that being a firm owner, you don't just get to do the financial planning, the fun part, working with the clients. You have to do the work part of building a firm, building a business. All of a sudden you have a marketing hat, you have, just everything, the compliance piece of it, the billing piece of it, the accounting side of it. There's a lot to do, a lot of different hats, and you have to decide, what hat you're going to wear each day. And sometimes it's what's on fire. Let me take care of it now.
Exactly. Whoever is yelling the loudest. No, I love your point about, you can always go back and get a job. And I definitely tell folks that was sort of my path as well, where I said, you know what, like jobs in financial planning are a dime a dozen, right? Like there's so many out there. If you have the CFP and some work experience, I mean, even if you're brand new to the industry, you can find a job pretty easily. But with experience, it's just so easy because we're so short on young talent coming into the profession that it's just absolutely there. But you can always fall back on that. And if your fallback plan is exactly what you're going to do either way, said in my own way, like that's sort of like you're living your plan B. Like, you're already living your fallback plan. So why not go for plan A? Why not give it a shot, see what happens? And it doesn't mean walk in unprepared. Don't walk in with no money, no clients, no idea what you're doing. But, if you walk in with knowing what you're getting yourself into and really own it, there's no reason you can't be successful. And if it doesn't work, like I said, it's not like you're going bankrupt in the process. That's not the way this business works. I don't know. It's a cool business for that reason. I feel like I don't know that a lot of other industries are able to say what I just said.
I think you're right. It is kind of a unique position in that, we have a service that we provide to clients. And as long as, there are plenty of clients out there for all of us, whether you're a huge billion-dollar firm or you're just a small single person solopreneur shop, just looking for a handful of clients. There are enough people out there looking for that help that there's enough business to go around. And I just feel like, after about probably, I think I've heard you and Michael Kitces both say that it takes about 3 years for it to really take off. And I'm at the 17-month mark now. And I think I told you I'm going to either explode, meaning I will all of a sudden just bring on a lot more clients and the revenue will flow, or I will implode and I'll just go back to plan B, which is get a job.
So tell me a little bit more about that. So you're 17 months in. Where are you? Remind me, you said at the beginning of the show, how many client households do you have currently?
Well, I'm right at 25 households that have onboarded with my firm. And just this year, probably, I don't know, 6 or somewhere between 6 and 8 of those households. I mentioned my father before. My father still had not completely retired. He had kept a handful of clients that were his that he joined my firm this year. And so it's kind of the back end of the succession plan for him that we have brought on some of those clients, and we still have a few more to bring on. So that's helped this year add quite a few. And that really kept me busy for a few months just because we brought them on pretty quickly and have all their plans built, and they are in the regular cycle for financial planning now. And we meet with them on a quarterly basis, and we meet with them together. And at some point he will decide to completely retire. But for now we work with each of those clients together. And then I have my own clients that I work with separately that he's not involved with. So it's kind of nice to have someone to fall back on if needed for some extra help. But he wants to just be able to golf a little bit more and enjoy life as he should, at this point in his life.
I do think it is somewhat awesome, or more than a little awesome, that ultimately, like, full circle, right? After telling you this probably wasn't a good career for you, to then full circle that now he works in your firm. I love it.
Yeah.
I think that's fantastic.
Yeah, I like that.
We don't have to tell him that, so don't tell him you're on the podcast. But hi, Dad, if you're listening. So 24 client households. What revenue does that represent for your firm? So sort of what is your, I guess, run rate, projected revenue for the next 12 months, given your current client base?
So for the next 12 months, it'll be larger than what it is now, which is great. That should be right about, for the next 12 months, should be over the 100,000 mark. For this year, we're right at the gross revenue of around 50 to 60,000 for this year, just depending on how many more come on this year. We bill in arrears, so we get to do the work for a quarter and then we bill the client. So I like having it that way. At least they get to see, what the product is before they pay for it. And the product being the advice that they're given, and just really kind of get a feel for what our process is. And then I think it's a little bit easier for the client to receive that bill as opposed to saying, pay me up front and, then I'll surprise you with what we do.
Right. So let's find out. Yeah. But again, to your point, it's, you do the work and then the revenue comes in later. But so back to sort of your comment, because I don't want to gloss over the implode or explode, because I think, and I said this at the conference, and for anybody that was at XYPN 16 and XYPN 17, we felt like XYPN 17 was just so much more fun of a conference, I think. And a lot of it was, I believe, where people were in their business. So at XYPN 16, the vast majority of attendees were in the exact position you are today, which is things are working. They're just not, they don't necessarily feel great. You're not quite where you want to be. you think it's going to work, but you're not quite sure. You're in this, and you're the first person I've ever heard say, you're in this implode versus explode, like this could work or this could blow up, and I don't know which one is going to happen. Well, I think what was fun about XYPN 17 was we saw so many advisors that had come out of that. And probably the same conversation you and I will have in a year at the conference at XYPN Live is to say, like, okay, I'm through it, and now I feel amazing. So I guess tell me more about sort of well, I guess first, is that sort of what it feels like, where it's this like, it could make it, it could not? Or I guess how confident are you that this thing's going to work?
Well, I'm pretty strong-willed, so I know it will work.
I love it.
I have to make it work. That's just my nature. But I can feel how, some days I wake up and I think, would it just be easier to go work for someone else? And then I go, oh, no, I wouldn't like that. I remember that I don't really want to be someone else's employee. So I just think of a new way to either market my business and I finally took to heart, I heard at XYPN 16 that I needed to have a niche. And at that point I was about 5 months into my business. And I thought, well, right now I just need whoever will work with me as opposed to a niche. I finally took that to heart and I decided to go get one more certification. And this is one that I know that you're going to love, Alan, because it was your first love, CDFA, Certified Divorce Financial Analyst.
So for anybody that doesn't know, obviously the word divorce is in there, but what was your impression of the education and training, and sort of what did it prepare you to do?
What it prepares me to do is work with people going through divorce, looking at what their future will look like from a financial standpoint, but also, what's an equitable divorce settlement, or not giving them that's what the attorney does, but looking at that settlement that they're thinking about and putting numbers to it to make sure that it is equitable. And so to speak, somebody is offered, everything in the 401k and the IRA, and then the other party is going to take the liquid assets, the bank accounts and, the non-qualified brokerage account. That's not equitable because one has a huge tax bill where the other does not. So it's looking at that and making sure that there aren't any surprises when it comes to taxes or, splitting those assets and helping them through that process from a financial standpoint. And that's kind of fell in my lap when I sat down to figure out what my niche should be. I looked at the majority of my clients were female. A good part of them came to me whenever they were going through a divorce. And I had some that came to me right after they'd gone through a divorce. And it was much easier to work with the ones, well, now I see the outcome was probably much better for the ones that worked with a financial planner before the divorce was final, because I had to research that and figure it out. And now I thought, all right, I'm going to get the CDFA designation, and now I will have even more knowledge about how to help people going through that process. And for whatever reason, people keep referring more people that are going through divorces, usually women, just because women talk to other women, and we're great referrers. And so I thought, well, might as well just embrace that. And I had gone through a divorce myself. And so I knew firsthand what that felt like. And, from an emotional standpoint, but also from a financial standpoint, what worked well in my divorce settlement and what didn't work, or what did I wish I had known when I was going through my own divorce. That's not anything I ever wish anyone to have to go through. Hopefully everyone who's married stays married forever, but that just sadly is not the way it is in this country. 50% of all marriages end in divorce, 60% of second marriages. And so it just is inevitable that we all are going to know someone who goes through a divorce. And it's never fun, but if you can get a handle on the financial side of it, that might help ease the pain. And that was what drew me to the CDFA.
Yeah, I remember I really liked the CDFA for the collaborative work, where you got to say, like, look, I want to help you both by trying to keep as much money out of government's hands as possible, because you view it as like it's me versus you, and we're going to split it somewhere down the middle. But the truth is there's a third party. And the third party is the tax man. And the whole point is, how do we keep money out of the tax man's hand and then make everything else work? So you could end up, like you said, you could end up with more assets because you didn't have to liquidate the 401k in order to make the, financial agreements work. But it's a tough, as you mentioned, like I got my CDFA, and, I worked with, I don't remember how many splitting households that were going through this process. And it was tough, it was taxing for me. I had a really tough time, I guess, leaving the stress at the door and like dealing with fighting clients and that sort of thing, and just knowing that no one was truly happy in this process. So I guess, how have you found it working with these clients? Are you just naturally gifted and just sort of have the right personality, do you feel like, to be able to work with clients going through this challenging of a time?
It must be something in my nature, because I've always had people, even before I was in this industry, that I'm that kind of person that people will just talk to. And I don't know, maybe it's because I talk a lot that they feel like they can talk a lot to me as well. And I enjoy that side of it, just really listening to what people have to say. And you learn a lot if you just listen to what they're saying. Sometimes they don't know exactly what they want, but if you listen to them, you can help them figure out what's the most important piece of it to them. But the collaborative divorce side of it, I agree with you. If you have to go through a divorce, it's a great way to get a divorce. It's a lot less expensive from a legal standpoint, just simply because everyone's working together and both attorneys are sitting down together with, both sides of the marriage and, deciding what's the best way to, it's really a business transaction. If you look at it that way, just splitting this pool of money and assets and making sure, and the debt, what's fair, and have everyone be able to walk out of there as whole as possible, and that there isn't one side that's more injured than the other. I went through a collaborative process in my divorce, and I think we came out on the other side probably better than if we had been pitted against each other, with attorneys that wanted to just really have a higher attorney bill.
Run up those hours.
Yeah. That's never good for anybody, I don't think. So if people can go through the collaborative process, I think it's better for everyone.
Totally agree. And I actually knew some folks when I was in Wisconsin that it's called the Divorce Financial Solutions. A guy, I believe his name was Garrett Zielinski, and that's all they did. They didn't do financial planning. They were not an RIA. All they did was collaborative divorce. And I think they were running, between the three of them, so it's him and his two sons, they were running about 1,000 cases a year. I mean, and you can do the math on, it was a successful firm because there is no shortage of people getting divorced. You can build a pretty successful, scalable business. They've built divorce planning software now, I believe, that does all the tax calculations and stuff. So if it's an area of interest, there's a huge need among clients. Very few attorneys know a CDFA. I think at one point I was the only one in Montana. I'm not sure if we have any here yet, in order to provide some of the services. And of course, there's a lot of state law issues, but so very cool. So you said you made that decision at XYPN 16. So have you seen a change in your practice by getting the CDFA and sort of focusing on that area? Are you seeing sort of any positives or negatives in terms of evolution of the firm?
Well, it was a little bit after XYPN 16 that I actually embraced it. I decided then, but I didn't really start the study until just this year. So how I envision the future of that is, as I study the CDFA, which you probably know too, that a lot of times there are financial planners that don't have any idea what to do with their client whenever they go through that divorce process. And I would like to see at some point other financial planners referring their divorce cases to me, that I work with them, and then the client goes back to them after the divorce is finished and they continue to do the financial planning side of it. That takes care of any issues of, that might be a compliance issue, or just you don't really want a conflict of interest, so to speak. But I see that as a future for my business, as well as just being able to help anyone who just comes to me directly. But so I think, like you said, a lot of attorneys don't know that there are CDFAs that will, help them calculate what those settlements look like, or just help through the collaborative process. And also if it does go to a trial, a lot of times they need an expert witness, and that's part of the CDFA training. So there are a lot of sides of it that you can kind of cultivate. So
yeah, my goal, I always was contractually banned from being in court, so they could never take me to court. So I never had to worry about it because that sounded awful. I never wanted to have to be on a stand because I don't know why. It was just an interesting. I guess, I don't know. That was a great example of me picking from a menu of options. I'm like, oh, I need this. This is how I'm going to make money, and not, just sort of diving all in before really assessing whether or not it was the best fit for me, which, is what it is. So you are seeing success in bringing on clients. You're obviously you said your father coming on board helped bring a few clients on. Where are you, I guess, if we go back to January, so it's September now, so sort of this year, where have you seen your clients coming from? Sort of how are they finding you, or how are you finding them? Any changes expected in the future for sort of where that growth is going to come from?
The ones that have come on this year, since January, are either referrals from my existing client base and just previous clients. So I haven't really run into a lot of people that just found me through either my website or through any other, search, or, of course, I'm out there on the XYPN network planner search, as well as FPA, NAPFA, all of those. I have active profiles, but I haven't seen a lot of leads from those. And maybe I need to go out and update my profiles. That's something I've talked to my coach about. So looking for more of that business, but it's really just networking. That's another area. I belong to some groups, mostly just either volunteer groups that I enjoy working with, or there's a group that I belong to that's all executive women. And most of them are business owners, and a lot of them have been great to refer me to either people outside of the group, or even within the group. I've had some interest where I started up a little small interest group that's called Money Mavens, and we get together and just talk about whatever money topics anyone wants to talk about. And we meet once a month, and that's been a great way just to meet more people to refer business. So I'd have to say, that's been a good way to really get the name of my company out there.
So you may have just opened up Pandora's box. You mentioned business coach. So 17 months in, when did you hire a business coach for the first time?
Last month.
Okay, so fairly new.
Yeah, it is new. And it's Arlene Donnelly Moss, and she's been fantastic. It's been a great collaboration between the two of us to really kind of hone in on what do I need to focus on, and how to really, what we're working on is marketing my firm. So I tried out a few other business coaches along the way, probably for the whole 17 months. Anytime that someone offered, a free 30-minute session or 45-minute session or 1-hour session, I would take them up on it if I thought that they might be helpful, and just to see what their style was. And nobody was really a great match for me. They gave me some tips and it was useful, but there wasn't really anyone where I said, no, that's really the one I want to work with. Or perhaps, it wasn't in my budget for the level that they were going to charge. So then I met Arlene, and once again had a session with her. And also I'd been in on some other sessions that she had done for groups within XYPN, some group coaching and just, some trainings that she had done. And I thought, I like her style. I think, I could learn from her. And the first session that we had, I don't know who talked more, me or her, but she was giving me ideas, and I was telling her just, my whole story and what it is that I'd like to do and what my big vision is. And she just was very quick to send me some resources that I could apply immediately. And then I got to meet her face to face at XYPN, and you'll have to ask her about that meeting, because I met her once and then I sat down next to her, the next day and she's like, "Hi, I'm Arlene." I go, "I know, I'm Melissa. I give you money."
That's what happens when we put her in meetings with members for like 12 straight hours. We had a coach's corner where, folks could meet with some of our various team members in their areas of expertise, and our scheduling system didn't work properly and we double booked everyone. So instead of having like 4 to 5 hours a day, they ended up with like 10. And so it was, we really wore our team out. But one of our recent pieces that we have rolled out for members like yourself, listeners may not be aware, is what we call executive business coaching. Arlene was our first hire. She's been on our team for 3 years now on a part-time basis and had an independent business coaching firm that we were able to talk her into sort of merging in with XY Planning Network so that we could start to build out a coaching program. Because one, we need to build out a team of coaches because everyone does have that specific personality. You could have met the greatest coach in the world, and it doesn't matter if they don't communicate with you and speak your language, which is huge. And so anyway, we're very excited because this is sort of an area, and you're approaching that point, and you actually even may be getting on it just a little bit early, which I think is earlier than a lot of people do, which I think is a good thing. And that is being sure that you're laying the foundation for the future, for your future success, and being sure that you're building a business that is what you want to build. I say this all the time, but I think many of us end up building the wrong business because we didn't think about it. We didn't think, what am I trying to build it? And I think that's the huge part about working with a coach, is you have someone to help you with that.
Right. And she's helped a lot of people. And I think that she probably learns as much from each of her coaching experiences, and then she can give that back to each of the people that she is currently coaching with, other people's experiences. And it's really a great way just to learn what might or might not work. And I love it whenever she can say, "Oh, try this because, somebody else tried this and it worked great for them. And it might be something I had never even imagined." And sometimes it's just one little change that just makes all the difference in the world. So we've only had 3 or 4 sessions, but I've learned a lot already, and we've already checked off quite a few things on the to-do list. And every time we meet, I have another to-do list. So
it's an accountability partner, right? It's not just an expert to help answer questions. You can go ask another financial planner a question. It's really about that accountability. And I love how you said the little things, because too often I think we focus on the big things. What's the big new marketing strategy? When what you should be focused on is the fact that, the call to action button to sign up for your newsletter on your website doesn't work. So, we gloss over, it's fine, I'm probably not losing too many leads that way, but how can I go out and spend a bunch of money on this big thing? And it's like, no, just focus on the little things. Because if you make just a few little changes a day, or one little change a day over the course of a year, you're going to have made 365 little changes, and it's going to be a massive change to your business, one little piece at a time.
You said it very well. Just take little steps just to accomplish a big task. And eventually it will all come together and it'll be great. I'm waiting for that day.
That's it. For anyone that wants to call me out, that is Kaizen theory, Kaizen. It's a Japanese philosophy of business, but I love it. I think it's just such a cool concept of how to increase efficiency and make it better. But like you said, it's a slow roll that, it's just sort of a slow moving process, which in the day-to-day, it feels very slow. And then in 6 months, you're going to look back and go, wow. I mean, even now, like think about, this year has probably gone by a lot faster than the next month will feel like it goes by. It's just, the way it works in our head as business owners. So what, I guess, is on your plate for the next 6 to 12 months? Are you going to be really focused on the CDFA and some of the divorce analyst work? Do you have any other big projects or things that you're going to be working on that you're excited about?
Mostly I will be focusing on the CDFA, but also before I was, looking to work with families, specifically college planning and student loan management. And then I found that there are some really different nuances if you're going through divorce or have been divorced, and on the college planning side, that there are some things there that are unique to families of divorce. And I really want to dive into that more and learn a little bit more about that and be able to really hone in on that niche of college planning for divorced families. And that's one thing on my plate, as well as just building up the divorce side of the business, working with attorneys in my area that might not even know about the CDFA, and really just going through those centers of influence to help generate that side of the business. And hopefully next year I'll have double the clients. I hope to have 50 households by next year. I know that's a pretty big number, but if I get 2 or 3 a month, then I'll be there.
That is, I love. So people will tell me like college planning, it's too specific. I'll never find enough clients. I'm like, come on, like how many people have a kid in high school that's planning on going to college? There's a plethora of opportunity out there. And you just took it one step further, which I think is awesome, because just because you know college planning doesn't mean you understand the nuances of planning for divorced couples, and especially if there's a remarriage and all of the various pieces that come with that. So that's so cool. I'm just like fanboying right now. Like, I think that's awesome. I'm excited to see how that progresses for you, because it's exactly what we hope to see from advisors, and really what we do see. Our benchmarking survey sort of showed this of over time, people do develop niches. Sometimes you didn't know that was a niche 17 months ago that you wanted to pursue. You're learning it, and it'll be interesting to see how it affects your business, but it sounds really exciting.
Yeah, I'm excited to learn more about it. And once again, it's some things I wish I had known a few years ago, but if I can help other people with, that knowledge, then I think it's going to be well worth it.
Absolutely. So as we come to a close, I'll ask you the final question. If you could go back, and maybe this is the Melissa 17 months ago when you were looking at starting a business, or even further back, if you could go back and give yourself one piece of advice, what would that piece of advice be?
Start this business sooner rather than later. Like by 20 years or more. Yeah. If you have the desire to try this out, then don't think about whether it's the right time in the economy, or if it's, the right time in, just in general. If you really have that desire, just go for your dream, jump in, get into this business. Maybe not start your own firm if you don't really know what you're doing yet, but at least get your feet wet and work with a financial planning firm and try it out and see if it's something that you like. And that's the one regret that I have, is that I didn't do this when I was 23 years old. But there's always a second chance.
Oh, sure. Yeah, and it's always tough, right? Because you learned a lot along the way. So I know it's always tough, because you're like, I wish I'd been in there, but maybe you learned sales in a way that you wouldn't have, comfortably been able to do sooner in your career. Who knows?
Yeah, most definitely. It's been a stepping stone. Every job I ever had was a stepping stone to this point. So it's been it's been good.
Well, Melissa, thank you so much for taking the time to come on the show and share about your first year and a half in the business. And look forward to learning more about how things are going. And maybe we'll be able to have you on in another year and see how this whole niche thing is working out for you.
Great. Thank you so much for having me.
Be sure to join our VIP community at xyplanningnetwork.com/VIP to hang out with other XYPN radio listeners, ask questions for future mailbag episodes with myself and Kitsis, and to finally find a community of like-minded financial advisors. Thanks so much for joining me today. We'll see you next time.
You're not alone, and you're not crazy. It's scary starting, building, and growing your own financial planning firm. And that's why we put together a free private community just for you, the Cutting Edge Financial Planner. Go to xyplanningnetwork.com/VIP or text XYPN Radio to 33344 and join a network of thousands ready to change the lives of Gen X and Gen Y clients.